Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, and in today's video, I want to talk about your team build order. That is, like, how do we survive in Marvel Strike Force with Scourges, Apocalypse, raid teams, all of that. I want to talk about, like, what my thinking is, and especially if you're a player that's, I would say, like, level 70, 75 plus, who are kind of approaching this sort of, later game with Dark Dimension as well, that this video is probably going to be for you. So I want to talk about not only what I'm doing with my roster, but what I personally recommend for other people who may not be as far along as I am. So if you're ready to go, then you know what to do. Let's boil this down. And before we get started on everything, I want to draw your attention to this infographic. Some of you may have seen this already. This is what I call my Horseman Scourge Events Guide as of patch 6.2. So this has all the information that we know so far as the characters, so especially for War and for Death. We don't know the specific lanes yet for War, but, as more information becomes available, I'll be sure to update this. But the reason why I bring this up is because this kind of, represents all of the characters that you should consider as far as Scourge building goes. But, there is a bit of a priority, I think, in terms of what you should be considering, and a lot of that actually depends on which event is coming up next. So most recently we had the second pass of Pestilence. So, this is kind of like off to one side for a little bit, for like another 2.5 months probably at this point. And what's coming up next is likely going to be War, which is going to be related to Red Hulk. And then after that, Famine's second pass as well, which will unlock the Saga for them, which, you need to have like gear 15 unlimited X-Men, right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about with this infographic, if you haven't seen it, I do recommend going over to my channel, and there's a video for this here called New Infographic Ultimate Scourge Characters Guide. This was published about 2 to 3 weeks ago. So do check that out if you haven't seen it already. And so I want to get started with my... Oh, actually, just as a little, heads up, I guess, as far as when Rogue's second event is probably going to be, we saw this is Pestilence 2, so that was on July 27th. This is like a really rough spreadsheet I have of event dates. But the difference between Pestilence 1 and Pestilence 2, Pestilence 1 was up here at the 13th of April, and then we had the 27th of July. So that's about 3.5 months. So if we put that to Famine, then that's probably going to be like mid-October, right? So we have about like 2.5 months before that's going to come back around. So as far as what you should be considering for your building, at least as far as Scourges go, make sure that you do have your characters available for War. But I do want to, stress that, if you're not a hyper-competitive player who's at the top, and you might not be watching my video anyways if you're that kind of person, I don't think that you should be building these characters to a high standard. Like, Gear 14, I don't know if that's a high standard for people now, but, like, Gear 14 is appropriate. I would probably just go with one team. And I know we don't know which team is going to be the best team at this point. People are debating between Hero as Guardians and Ravagers. But really, I think, like, if you get a 4-star on Red Hulk, or even a 5-star on difficulty, I don't know, like 7 or whatever it is, 7 or 8, I think that's perfectly okay. Because I don't think that you need to stress too much about it, because there's going to be 2 passes before the saga comes out anyways, which means that if you get a 4-star on the first pass, you'll probably get a 5+ on the second pass. If you get a 5 on the first time, you'll probably get 6 on the second. And so that's more than okay, I think, for what's going to be largely a War team, right, with Gamma. And so I think that maybe that allows you to then refocus again on Famine, who I think at Rogue is going to be a little bit more important, and is a little bit more important, but of course I don't know the kit for Red Hulk. And for the characters that you need to build. So Young Avengers, Web Warriors, and then you have Hero as Guardians and Ravagers as the main nodes 5 and 10. And then, of course, Bionic Avengers, but that's for Death, which is down the line. You probably should be building Bionic Avengers anyways at some point, because they're the awesome Doom Raid Tech Team solution, which is coming up. But I want to go over to my roster here. So when I was building, more generally, like if we back this up to like April, I was really focused on Darkhold, because I think that Darkhold is, and probably still is, one of the biggest Horseman teams that are available. I think that they're bigger than Unlimited X-Men. I think that they're bigger than Gamma, even though that we don't have Gamma. I think they will be. I think that they're one of the most important things. So as far as if you're just getting started on Scourges, if you somehow missed, Morgan Le Fay's second pass, I feel like you should really prepare for Morgan Le Fay's third pass, and that way that you can prepare on your Web Warriors. And because Web Warriors is a raid team, that's a double whammy, which is great, right? You can use Web Warriors in quite a variety of different places. You can get them in, you could farm them for the most part now, I mean, with the exception of maybe Spider-Punk, depending on what you consider. He's in the Arena Orb. Ghost Spider is in the Raid Season Milestone and is available in the Arena Store as well as if you want. Scarlet Spider in the War Store and the other two in the Blitz Store, and Miles has a node. So this is a very accessible team and something that I recommend for people who are like level 70 plus. You know, even if you're not even in Doom Raid, if you're still in Ultimate 7.5 or whatever, you could still use Web Warriors as your main raid team, and that's perfectly okay too. They're a Doom Raid bio team, super important to have. So not only that, but it doubles again for nodes 5 and 10 for Pestilence. So really good priority build for Web Warriors, I think, as well. And that's just one of the 5 raid teams that you need for Doom Raid in general as well. So I think that's a good thing to do there as well. So, you know, I think you really need to start wondering, like, which teams do I build first? And like I said before, I think that you do need to keep in mind sort of what's coming up. And for me, because Red Hulk is coming up, I'm not going to say that Gamma is a big priority for me. I did take Hulk up to level 80, gear 14. Part of this was because I wasn't sure if I was going to use him in the War event as part of the Wave 1 Avengers. I still don't know, but I decided to take him to 80, gear tier 14, but I'm not going to take him any further than this. And this is as far as I'm going to go. And for She-Hulk, this is not a big priority for me either. She's hearted, but I probably won't get around to this anytime soon. So what I'm doing right now, based on the characters that I have on my roster screen and what I'm building currently, I am finishing off my Bionic Avengers. So once Viv and Hulkbuster become available, that's what I'm going to be working on with them. After and that means one team that's already put aside for Death, which I know is not the next Scourge coming up, but I'm going to be taking this team up really high for Doom Raid Tech. And even if they're not the #1 team for Death, I don't care. Like, that's the only team I am building for Death, because I'm okay with a 5-star, you know, on the event. If I can't get a 5-star Scourge character, a Horseman character, with gear tier 16 Bionic Avengers, there's something really, really wrong, I think. So, you know, I'm going to be building this team up to the level 90, probably, you know, gear tier 16 on some of them, you know, for Doom Raid Tech. And as a result, you know, back to the infographic again, you know, I'm the main, I don't care who else is on this list, I'm going to be using them as my primary team. And so if I can get a 5-star, that's awesome. If I can't, I wonder, you know, why I couldn't beat, you know, 15 to 20,000 other people with my team. But, you know, that's just, we'll see what happens when it happens. And so that's a good priority there. Now, after Bionic Avengers, what's my plan? I'm going to go back to Unlimited X-Men, because I think that thinking about Apocalypse in the back of your head is kind of important. It's not going to be for a long time. It's going to be about 6 months down the line. And, you know, I think that there's some wiggle space there. So I'm going to be going back to my Unlimited X-Men to get them to about 85. I might not gear them up right away, but I want to at least put the gold in them. I'm slowly doing it for Dazzler, so she's gear tier 14, level 83. I'll probably put some more levels in her soon. And then from Dazzler, I'm going to be moving on to, I don't know, both Phantom X and Sunfire are at level 80, so I just need 5 more levels there. And then after that, maybe I can start thinking about Gamma, right? So I'm doing it in the order of the Saga releases, you know. So I already have Darkhold up to where they need to be. I've completed Darkhold, the Saga level 2 or difficulty 2, and that's fine there. You know, I'm not really considering difficulty 3 anytime soon because it's gear tier 17, right? So that's not really on the radar for most people. What's on the radar is the Saga being unlocked and then getting through that difficulty 2, which requires gear tier 15 characters of the full team. So as you can see, I already have this for Darkhold. So that's kind of pushed aside. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And so now that's why I went back and you know, Unlimited and X-Men are priority 2. Bionic Avengers is priority 1. Unlimited X-Men is priority 3. Gamma's probably priority 3. And then after that, wait, did I say Gamma twice? Unlimited X-Men 2, Gamma 3. And then after that, you know, that leaves a lot of space, I guess. You know, I guess we could start thinking about what the team number 4 is going to be for Death and their Horsemen. Are there any existing characters that we already have in the game that might be on that team? Who knows? We don't know that information yet. Maybe we will over the next month or so. But I think you really need to think about, like, there's so many things to do in this game. So many characters. Not so many things to do. So many characters that need to be built. with limited resources. And how do you manage those resources? Because that's super important. So make sure you have a goal, even if you just have to stick them, you know, with hearts on them to know like who you're focusing on first. Do like one team at a time. It's super important not to get overwhelmed. You know, actually, for that matter, I'm going to take, no, I'll keep them on there. I was going to unheart Hulk for just now, but don't get confused. Work on one team at a time and make sure that you have a plan to where you're headed. So again, doubling back to the infographic, it's super important. And if you're someone who obviously probably doesn't have a roster as big as mine, you want to maybe like choose one event or an upcoming event, work on that with the characters. And I think this is a really great infographic because there's a lot of character overlap between the various Scourge events. So nodes 5 and 10 aside, you know, Web Warriors, Young Avengers, and Heroes Guardians and Bionic Avengers aside, there's a lot of overlapping characters that are often in these events. So characters like the Eternals, for example, they double up in both Pestilence and Famine. Very likely, I think they'll double up again in War. There'll be some sort of lane, you know, where these characters can overlap. And that's why I have this category here. Some of the best characters in the game that you're going to be using, you know, in a variety of different Scourges. So I do need to kind of fix up a little bit. There were some complaints about Wolverine being on this list now, and maybe I need to reconsider a little bit on Weapon X, you know, with some other tech characters available. But nonetheless, you know, this still represents the majority of characters that you should be considering, which you will be using over across multiple Scourge events. And of course, like I said, as they become known, as the lanes become known, we'll be updating this infographic as well, both for War and for Death, to make it look similar to what this looks like for Pestilence and Famine. And so these characters that are in each of these lane boxes basically represent the best characters that you should be using for those sections. And I think what's really, really, really important to understand, especially if you're not a veteran endgame player like I am at like 20 million TCP, is be okay with getting a 4-star Horseman character. You know, that's perfectly get okay with a 3-star. You know, the most important thing is that you get them unlocked. I don't think that you need to be concerned about getting a 5-star on the first pass if you're not a veteran player, you know, and understanding what you can do within your own means. And I think that's super, super, super important. And I can't stress that enough because some people just get overwhelmed with how much stuff that you need to do in this game, and really making proper goals that are reasonably obtainable, I think, is really important for your progress, so that you don't over exhaust your resources. Make sure you just put in enough of what you need to do. That's why when I'm building my characters, especially for Scourges, you know, gear tier 14, that's like a good goal for node 5 and 10 characters. You know, maybe put a little bit more gold in, but don't over, you know, expend your resources, your gear, because a lot of that can go away pretty quickly. And I've talked about this in previous videos, but like, I don't know. Okay, that's teal. I should have looked at someone else. My focus catalyst, my orange focus catalysts are super bad. I can take a look at Dazzler. You know, I have about 1,000. Okay, I have about 1,100 now. That's gone up since last time. But for Viv and Hulkbuster, I'm going to need like 430 each, I believe. And so after I upgrade Hulkbuster and Viv to gear tier 15, I'm basically going to be tapped. And so while this might not be a concern for everyone, it's a concern for me. Orange catalysts are still a bit of a problem. And so that's why I've left my other characters where they are. This is why I can't upgrade She-Hulk. This is why I can't upgrade Hulk, Phantom X, or Sunfire, because I'm going to be losing these catalysts that I need in the priority build. You know, I'm not going to, if I do this for Sunfire and Phantom X now, I'm not going to have it for Viv and Hulkbuster when I really want it first, since they're my first team priority. So don't go balls to the wall and upgrading all of your characters with orange gear, like willy-nilly. Make sure you're careful about what you do. And I realize that I haven't really talked much about Dark Dimension here, and I'm going to be doing a separate video on Dark Dimension characters, Dark Dimension 3, 4, and 5, priority builds for that, and a lot of that is going to be talked about in the same manner as this video in terms of what I feel is the priority. So number 1, I do feel that Scourge events are the main priority. Number 2, I feel that raids are the second biggest priority in the game, because it's daily content and stuff that you do with your alliance. Now, if those two overlap, which is highly possible with both Web Warriors and Bionic Avengers, then you know what you should be doing. You know, those two teams at least are two teams that I feel are going to give you the most value in this game, because you're using them right now. If you're in Doom Raid 1, 2, or 3, or whatever, you're going to be using them daily. Whereas characters like the Heroes Guardians, I feel a little bit baited into. I don't quite regret this, but they're a war team. I know that Young Avengers are a war team as well, but I felt better about Young Avengers than I do about the Heroes Guardians. And so it's not that I wish I could get my resources back, but it's not a team that I use daily. And so that's where I'm going to get the biggest value and the biggest bang for my buck, is if I'm using these characters daily, which I am doing for Web Warriors. not quite on Young Avengers, but they're still a great team. I'm using them in Cosmic Crucible, so I'm getting more value out of them than Heroes Guardians. And then Bionic Avengers, which I'm building now, will definitely have that daily value. So really important. I didn't talk about some of the other raid teams, of course. There's the Skill team, which is Secret Avengers, Astonishing X-Men, and Mystics more broadly. You know, heroes, but they're all represented in this chart, which is why this is so important, right? I believe Astonishing X-Men is somewhere around here, Secret Avengers is somewhere around here for Pestilence, and even on this overlap list, you know, Eternals are on there, and so these are characters that you're going to be using in Doom Raid Mystic as well. So, you know, I think they're all here. Not to, like, you know, bring you back to the infographic, but I wanted to talk about sort of my thought process as I go through building my roster. This is basically how it's going to be for the next 2 months at least. So Bionic Avengers, Unlimited X-Men, and then Gamma, and then we'll see what team number 4 is for the Death Horseman team, and then we'll reevaluate as we learn more, I guess, you know, whether or not they're a mutant team or a skill team. Some people are suggesting that maybe, just maybe, they might be a skill team, and I know that some people are going to be really frustrated with that if it's not Archangel, but hey, we'll find out in due time. So that's the end of this video. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the way that sort of building is needed now in Marvel Strike Force, with so many characters being basically told to you what you need to do? Make sure you have a plan. It is so important to have a building plan and just know, like, sort of what your priorities are and how to kind of progress through your roster. So that's the end of this video, and until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.